We're diving into a genuinely fascinating story about how a seemingly basic, box-shaped truck from 1973 completely accidentally became a multi-generational icon. I mean, we're talking about a vehicle that entirely defied the normal automotive life cycle and cemented itself right into the hearts of millions.
So, think about this central mystery for a second. Why did America fall so deeply in love with a box on wheels? It's a great question, right? Because back in the early 1970s, trucks were literally just tools. You used them on the farm, you hauled gear to the job site, and honestly, that was about it. They were not these shiny lifestyle vehicles we see today. And yet, this specific third-generation Chevrolet and GMC C/K truck, where C stands for two-wheel drive and K stands for four-wheel drive, it completely changed the game for everyone.
But here's the kicker. Nobody looked at this truck in 1973 and thought, oh yeah, that's going to be an icon. It was just a solid truck sitting on the dealership lot. GM absolutely did not set out to build a timeless legend. They've been running their second-generation Action line trucks since '67, and while those sold fine, Ford and Dodge were innovating. General Motors just needed something fresh that felt like a leap forward. They weren't swinging for the fences, you know. They simply needed to build their next truck.
Third-gen C/K actually hit the lots, the public response was nothing short of explosive. Over 1 million of these were sold in the very first year of production alone. 1 million! The American love affair literally happened overnight. The price was right, the proportions were perfect, and honestly, the salesman basically just had to stand out of the way and let them sell themselves.
Now there is this brilliant juxtaposition between what the fans saw and what the engineers actually built. Everybody today knows this truck is the square body. Makes sense. It's famous for those broad, boxy, rectangular shoulders. But internally, GM actually called it the rounded line. Crazy, right? It's because the design guys saw subtle curves that soften the corners, curves that were entirely intentional and a result of some seriously hidden, high-tech engineering.
GM threw millions into the tech for this project. This was actually the very first GM truck ever tested in a wind tunnel. They used computer-aided engineering and simulations, which, for the early 70s, is absolutely mind-blowing, just to design the independent front suspension. They even integrated the AM/FM radio antenna directly into the windshield glass to cut down on drag. They optimized the entire exterior shape for better aerodynamics and fuel economy. It was incredibly high-tech, just wrapped in a shape that felt familiar and rugged.
So to completely transform the ride quality, GM got really systematic. First, they stretched out the wheelbases to give the truck way better stability and smoothness on the highway. For the two-wheel drive models, they dropped in that computer-simulated independent front suspension we just talked about. Then they tackled that awful rough road bounce by placing the rear shocks asymmetrically. Add in standard front disc brakes for major stopping power, and suddenly, the square body drove and stopped better than practically any truck that came before it.
And they definitely didn't stop with the chassis. They brought actual car-like comforts right into the cab. The interiors were roomier, a lot quieter, and had significantly better ventilation. Instead of just a random scattering of dials, the dashboard was organized to actually be friendly to the driver. You could even option these things with power windows, power locks, and plush carpet. It beautifully bridged the gap between a rugged farm implement and a cozy daily driver, totally opening up the market to buyers who would never have considered parking a pickup in their driveway before.
Now, the real emotional core of this truck's legendary status, it's the powertrain lineup. You had these incredibly robust, wonderfully simple options, starting out with a rock-solid 250 cubic inch inline-six, giving you 100 horsepower and 175 pound-feet of torque. Need a bit more punch? Step up to the LS9 350 cubic inch V8 for 175 horsepower. And if you needed to tow a house and didn't mind basically living at the gas station, you could grab the massive 454 cubic inch big block, pushing 230 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque. But the absolute best part? Any weekend gearhead could rebuild these simple engines on a workbench in their own garage.
GM trusted you, and that trust fueled this beautiful mechanical simplicity. They designed the truck for the person sitting in the driver's seat, not for a computer to make all the decisions. If your window needed to go down, you turned a handle. If you needed four-wheel drive, well, you reached down, grabbed a solid stick on the floor, and engaged it yourself. It had strong, easy-to-understand, solid iron front axles. GM just assumed you'd want to crawl underneath it with a flashlight and an owner's manual to figure out how it worked. They respected your ability to fix it.
To really put into perspective just how beloved this truck became, you just have to look at its lifespan. A typical vehicle generation usually lasts, 5 years? Maybe 7 if it's a huge hit. The square body debuted in '73. It brought us the first American full-size truck with a diesel engine in '78. In '87, GM introduced a completely brand new truck platform.
Normally, that means the old truck goes straight to the graveyard, but customers flat out refused to let the square body die. So GM just renamed it the RV series and literally kept selling it right alongside the new trucks all the way until 1991, nearly 2 decades of production.
They did exactly what you should do when you absolutely nail a design. They left it alone. Sure, over almost 20 years, there were some minor cosmetic tweaks. They sloped the hood a tiny bit, moved the wipers around, changed the grille styles here and there, but the fundamental, iconic body shape stayed exactly the same. Honestly, unless you're a hardcore expert, a 1985 square body looks virtually identical to a 1973. It created this timeless, comforting familiarity on American roads.
All that mechanical simplicity and the massive production numbers we just talked about, today's aftermarket for these trucks is out of this world. Take an '83 Silverado, for example. Builders today are dropping in complete Pro Touring chassis, triple adjustable Ride-Tech coilovers, massive 14-inch Willwood brakes, and heavy-duty Curry Fab 9-rear axles. You can so easily rip out the vintage farm truck hardware, swap in modern performance parts, and basically create a street rod that carves corners like a sports car. It's wild.
And this brings us right back to the heart of the matter. This truck is over 40 years old, yet you can still buy every single part for it. You can literally still fix everything on it in your driveway. Today, clean, original examples are going for more than they cost brand new. It's a vehicle that actually demands and expects a little something from you. It forms a real bond with the owner because it feels like it was built with you in mind rather than just for you.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. How on earth did GM build a truck so perfect that even they had trouble moving on from it? Ultimately, the square body remains this accidental masterpiece of comfort, capability, and absolute mechanical honesty. As modern cars become more and more like giant rolling smartphones, we really have to wonder, will we ever see a vehicle built with this much straightforward respect for its owner ever again? Keep that question in the back of your mind the next time you see one of these classic boxy trucks rolling down the highway. See you next time.